رسوله الكريم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي واجعل لي وزيرا من أهلي اللهم فقهنا في الدين اللهم فقهنا في الدين اللهم فقهنا في الدين ربي يسر ولا تعسر وتمم بالخير وبك نستعين يا فتاح ربي زدني علما ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما آمين يا أرحم الراحمين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh once again. Alhamdulillah, last week we talked about Ayat al-Kursi, that is ayah number 255 of the Quran. And today we will continue with ayah number 256 and 257 of Surah Al Baqarah. And we'll start with the word by word meaning. So ayah 256 first. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
لا إكراه في الدين قد تبين الرشد من الغي فمن يكفر بالطاغوت ويؤمن بالله فقد استمسك بالعروة الوثقى لا انفصام لها والله سميع عليم.
لا إكراه. لا, there is no, it's no, and so there is no ikrah. Karaha is something that you're displeased by, something that you are being forced to do something. Like we have karahat to do something that we really don't like to do, but we have to do something. So we say that in that sense. So la ikraha, there is no compulsion. There's no forcing somebody to do what? Fiddin, in the religion. So there's no force. There is no compulsion to come to the religion. Qad, surely, definitely, there is no doubt that tabayyana. Bayyana is to make something clear, to separate between the white and the black, for instance. Like there is gray, there's a lot of gray, and then it gets separated into white and black. So it becomes distinct, it becomes very clear. So qad tabayyana, that surely has become distinct. And what has become distinct? Ar-rushdu min al-ghayy. Rushd is the right path, the guidance, and ghayy is the opposite, which is the misguidance, something that is wrong. Very similar to this, these two words are opposite of each other, and similar is when we say huda versus dalala. Right? When we ask Allah Ta'ala in Surah Fatiha, Ya Allah, ihdina siratal mustaqim, give me hidayah to the right path, and don't me of those who are ad-dallin. And dallin are those who have misguidance, which is the exact opposite of huda, of guidance. But huda and guidance are more, these rushd and ghayy are similar, but slightly different in the sense that guidance and dalal, huda and dalala, they are more in the heart and ideas and thoughts and things to do. But rushd and ghayy is more like the practical manifestation of it, like what you're actually doing, what is, it is action based. Basically, there are elements in both, but this is more about action. So the right path in terms of action, and ghayy, the wrong path in terms of action, doing something about it. Faman, then whoever. Fa is then or so. Man is whoever. Yakfur, from kafara to disbelieve. Yakfur, whoever disbelieves. Then whoever disbelieves. Bit taghuti, in the Taghut. Taghut is referring to the false deities here. Now, Taghut comes from the word tagha, and tagha is to exceed limits. So, for example, when water would overflow from the river banks, the river, there is a flood in the river and the water overflows from the banks of the river. It is said in Arabic, the expression that is used is tagha al-ma'a, that the water exceeded its limit, the water crossed or exceeded its limits. And for another place that the Quran utilizes this root is when the Quran describes calamity that destroyed the people of Thamud. Right? The people of the Thamud were one of the people, and they rejected their prophet, and then a punishment came to them. And the punishment that came to the people of Thamud was is referred to as Taghiya. Taghiya in the sense that it was an extreme calamity that exceeded all limits in meaning of, and here this Taghut here, it's in the meaning of rebelling or exceeding all bounds. Anything or anybody that rebels or exceeds all bounds with respect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So whoever disbelieves in Taghut, in anything that, and we'll go in a little bit more detail, inshallah, when we go in a bit more detail about the word Taghut. But whoever disbelieves in Taghut, in anybody who's exceeding the limits with respect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wa yu'min billahi, and then believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, doesn't just disbelieve in the false deities, but also believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, faqat, then surely, istamsaka, he has grasped, he has held on tight to what? Bil urwatil wuthqa. Urwa is a handhold, something that you hold. Like, for example, there is a drawer, and the drawer, there is a handle of the drawer, or there is a rope, or when people go, let's say, people are going to these tree trekking or places in which they have to, they have this harness that's holding them, and then they hold on tight to the harness, and the place that they hold on tight from, that's a handhold. At the end of the rope, there is a little handle to which people hold on. So somebody who's, for example, somebody is drowning, and you throw a rope to them, and at the end of a rope, there's a little round thing which a person can hold on to with both their hands tightly so that they don't fall off, or they can be saved. So it's a handhold. Orvata is handhold, and wuthqa is something that is firm, something that is that does not break, something that is not that does not have breaks in it, that's not weak. It's something that is tight, secure, and it is firm in all sense. And what happens to such a person? Oh, sorry. And what kind of a handhold is this? Lan fisama laha, that it will not break for it, right? Which this handhold will not break. Wallahu sami'un alim, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all hearing and all knowing. So in this ayah, Allah ta'ala is telling us, after telling us about himself in Ayat al-Kursi, then Allah ta'ala tells us, then there is, even though we know all the qualities of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even though we understood that there is so, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so majestic, and he has so much power, and nobody can say anything in front of him. He's always living, and nobody can do shafa in front of him and everything. Even though he's so powerful and majestic, yet what he has done is he has put no compulsion in religion. La ikraha fid deen. And the right course, and why is there no compulsion deen? The right course has become clear from the wrong. It is very clear what is the right path and what is the wrong path. So whoever disbelieves in Taghut and believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has grasped the most trustworthy handhold with no break in it. There is no break in this handhold. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all hearing and all knowing. And then ayah number 257.
الله ولي الذين آمنوا يخرجهم من الظلمات إلى النور والذين كفروا أولياؤهم الطاغوت يخرجونهم من النور إلى الظلمات أولئك أصحاب النار هم فيها خالدون.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Waliyu. He is the Wali. It's one of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well, Al-Wali. And Al-Wali means somebody who is a protective guardian. A Wali is somebody who's a friend, who's a companion, who's a supporter, who's a helper, and who's a protective guardian for us. So Allah is Wali. And who is he a Wali to? Alladhina amanu, to those who believe. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is himself the Wali of those who believe. And what does he do? Yukhrijuna. Kharaja, to bring somebody out of something. Kharaja, to take something out. So what does he do? Yukhrijuhum. He brings them out. Who brings whom out? Whom is referring to? Alladina amanu. Those who believe. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings those who believe out of minaz dhulumat, of darknesses. And dhulumat is the plural, and referring to darknesses of all kinds. There could be many different kinds of darknesses, and Allah Ta'ala will bring those who believe out of darknesses ila nur, towards the light. وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, and those who disbelieve in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whoever disbelieves in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, awliya'uhum, their guardians are who? At-Taghut, the evil ones, the Taghut. And we learned about the Taghut in the previous ayah. That we'll talk more about it, inshallah. And their awliya, their guardians are the evil ones. Yukhrijunahum, they bring them out. So yukhrijuna is like plural. With una, we know that it's a plural, the una at the end. And hum is referring to them. So them referring to the those who disbelieve here. So those who disbelieve, their guardians are the evil ones. And what do the evil ones do? They bring them out minan nuri, from the light, ila dhulumat, towards the darknesses. Ulaika, those are the ashab. Ashab means companions of something, somebody who's a close companion who does not leave the side. Those are the companions of fire, annar. So these people who disbelieve, and their awliya are the evil ones, and they go to the darkness because the evil ones take them from light to the darkness. They become the companions of the fire. Hum fiha khalidun. Hum, they, fiha, fi is in, ha is it. Hum fiha khalidun. They will live in it forever. And here, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us in this beautiful ayah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the ally, He's the guardian, He's the protective guardian, the friend, the supporter, the helper of those who believe. He brings them out of from the darknesses into light. And those who disbelieve, their allies are the Taghut. They take them out of light into darknesses, and these are the companions of fire, and they will abide therein, eternally therein. They'll be living there forever. So we'll go in a little bit more detail now, inshallah. In Ayah 256, we are learning that there is no compulsion in this religion, and surely the right course has become very clear from the wrong course. And whoever disbelieves in Taghut and believes in Allah has grasped the most trustworthy handhold with no break in it, and Allah is all hearing and all knowing. So first of all, there are some instances reported on when this ayah was revealed, what was happening when this ayah was revealed. So if we think about the time that this ayah was being revealed, it was when the Prophet ﷺ was in Medina, and there were some people who had accepted Islam, and basically Islam was flourishing at this time, starting to flourish more and more at this time. And there are several instances reported. One of them was that before Islam, and even in the beginning stages of it, like some people had a superstition, which were before they became Muslim, that obviously in Islam, no superstition is allowed, first of all, that we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't believe that things or people or anything else has any power to make changes without any asbab, without any means. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says and does things with kun fayakun, with without any apparent means of doing something. Like, for example, a doctor would cure something, but he would use medicine. He has some means to use something. He won't just will for it to happen, it happens. That is only the only one being who can do that, that he wills for something that to happen and it happens. That is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. None of us, no matter what our qualifications, no matter what we do, we cannot just will for something to happen. An engineer can't just think of a design and it just pops up. He'll have to start work on it, and there'll be people involved, there'll be resources involved, and all those things involved. But obviously superstition takes us the other way. Superstition tells us that, like something, a cat crossed your path and something wrong would happen, or you wear a certain kind of stone and something good would happen. So those are all, and different superstitions we find in different cultures in different ways. So there was one superstition in the people of Medina, before it became Medina, when it was Yathrib, was that they looked at the Jews as very highly, because Jews were the people of civilization. They had a scripture and everything. And the people of Yathrib at that time, before it became Medina, were idol worshippers. So they viewed as, and they understood that somebody who has a scripture and a guideline of doing things and everything. So they looked at Jews as slightly higher than themselves and everything. And there was a woman from Ansar, and she used to be afflicted by the death of her children. So her children would not survive, right? And she kept losing her children. So she swore to herself, she made an oath to herself, that if she had a child who survived, then she would make that child a Jew. Right, so she did that, and there was also this superstition in several other people. They somehow thought that if somebody is Jew, they would live longer, and so they sometimes did this. They wanted their children to become Jew or something. Now, what happened was, in some of the cases, now they had made their children Jews, and now the children had grown up. And now what happened, that when Islam came, the parents who had this child who had been raised as a Jew. Now these parents converted to Islam, and when they became Muslim, after they came in touch with Islam and they learned everything, now what do they do about their children? Right now they want their children to become Muslim, so they are asking and they're forcing their children, no, you have to give up this and become Muslims. But then this ayah says that no, there is no compulsion in deen. You cannot, even though they're your own children, you cannot force them to come to Islam. Like it has to come from within. Another incident that is revealed is that this verse was revealed from Mujahid. This is a report from Mujahid, and he said that this verse was revealed regarding a man from the Ansar who had a black slave, and his slave was named Subayh. Okay, and this man from Ansar, he tried to force him to accept Islam, and then this ayah was revealed that no, you cannot do that. As much as you want khair and good for somebody else, you cannot force anybody to accept religion. Another instance that is reported is by As-Sudi, and he said it was revealed concerning an Ansari man. His name was Abul Hussein, and he had two sons. And sometime what happened was there were some traders who came from Sham. They came to Medina and they brought oil and things with them. And when they were about to leave, they met these two sons of Abul Hussein, and these traders invited them to become Christians, and these two sons became Christians, and they went with him to Asham. Now, Abul Hussein informed the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam about this, and he said that call them both. And then Allah Subhanahu wa Taala revealed that there is no compulsion in religion. And then the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam replied that Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has distanced them from Himself, for they are the first to reject faith. So they have rejected faith, and then Allah Taala has distanced them from Himself. So we can't really do anything about it now. And another instance that is reported is Masruq. He said that a man from among the Ansar, from Banu Salim ibn Auf, he had two sons who embraced Christianity before the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was sent with his mission to Medina. So this was before the Prophet ﷺ came to Medina, and they had become Christians. Then they came to Medina with a group of Christians. They came back to Medina after the Prophet ﷺ had come, and they came to Medina with a group of Christians, and they were carrying some food with them. And their father approached them, and their father told his sons that, and he said, by Allah, I will not leave you until you embrace Islam. No, you have to embrace Islam, otherwise I will not leave you. But they refused to embrace Islam, and so they took their dispute. Like, so the father and the sons, they're having a little dispute, and they took their matter to the Prophet ﷺ. And the father said, O Messenger of Allah ﷺ, will my sons enter the fire while I watch? How can I do this? Like they while I'll be watching and they'll be entering fire, how can I sit with this? How can I sit at peace with this? And so Allah, the Almighty, the All Powerful, He revealed this verse. There is no compulsion in religion, and verily, قد تبين الرشد من الغي لا إكراه في الدين قد تبين الرشد من الغي. There is no compulsion in religion, and certainly the right path has become distinct from the wrong path. Then he left them. After this, he left them to follow their own path. And in another report, Mujahid said that there were some people who had been breastfed by the women of the Jewish tribe. So in that time, of course, we're talking of a time more than 1400 years ago. Tribes were different and traditions were different. It was a practice, it was a very common practice at that time that women you would breastfeed other people's children as well. And it was in some places it was like a profession. They would be paid for it, and it was considered nothing wrong like that. And it was a very common practice. And you would the person would be paid for it, and then this woman who was not the child's biological mother would become a child's mother through milk, right? Through the breast milk. This woman would be, it was called Rajai mom. So it was be like a mother who's not biological but through the milk. And so there were some people, what they had done was they had been basically had women from the Jewish tribes of Banu Qurayza and Banu Nadir. They had breastfed some of the children from the people of Medina. And when Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam ordered later on, a bit later in the Sirah, when Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam ordered the deportation of Jews from Medina, because when they had been treacherous and they had schemed against Muslims and everything, and that time, and when the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, so when we learn the Sirah, just just to understand when, what time period we are referring to. So when the Prophet ﷺ had come to Medina, then there were certain pacts that were made with the people who were living in Medina. That, for example, anybody who's embracing Islam, then this thing are valid upon this person, and whoever is an idol worshiper, or whoever is a Jew or a Christian, they can do their own thing. The Jews and if they were predominantly Jews, not Christians so much in that region. But then if there were Jews, they can have their own, if they have any internal disputes, they can utilize their own courts for that purpose, no problem, and they can do their own thing. But then if there is a common threat against the whole city, then they'll all stand together. So there were several things in that pact which was made with each other. And but then some these Jewish tribes, some of them, they planned against, they broke this treaty, and they did something which was against what they had made a pact with the Prophet ﷺ. And Prophet ﷺ was made the leader of Medina, as we all know, and he had made all these pacts. But when they were treacherous, and they schemed and plotted against the Muslims, to then they were. Then the Prophet ﷺ had ordered deportation of one of the tribes from Medina. And now these sons, now what happened is, when the Jews are being, this tribe is being deported, then the children who were now grown up, who had been breastfed by, and these were from the tribe of Aus. There were two major tribes in Medina that we know, Aus and Khazraj. There were many other tribes as well, but these were the two main tribes. And so there's these children from the tribe of Aus who had been breastfed by the women from Banu Qurayza and Banu Nadir. These children had now grown up, and now they said, we will go with them and we will join their religion. If they're going, then we will go with them, right? And their families now, because their families had now accepted Islam, and their families wished to prevent them and force them to embrace Islam. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed that there is no compulsion in religion. So what we learn is, of course, that there is no compulsion in religion, and we cannot force anybody to become Muslim, right? And again, the purpose is, a person accepting Islam unwillingly has no meaning at all, because it has to come from the heart. And some people utilize this part as la ikraha fi din is misinterpreted by several people. One of the way that people interpret it is, the first thing is, does that mean that we should leave people alone, that we should not talk about Islam to people and everything? No, first of all, it does not mean that. It means that we should adopt reasonable and sober methods to propagate our religion, to call people to our religion, and to show them the truth, very clearly as we can, depending on our own resources and our own level of understanding at that particular point. So whatever we can do, we should do in a reasonable and a sober way. And we should try to definitely propagate our religion. We should try to definitely call people to faith. That is something, and to save them from fire, and ourselves as well. But if someone sticks to their infidelity, even after we have made several efforts and things are clear to them, we know very clearly that they have understood now that this is Islam and this is true, but they still stick to their infidelity even after this, then they should be left to themselves. Then we cannot force them beyond a certain point. And the responsibility, even the responsibility of Allah's Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and our responsibility as his followers, is only to convey the truth clearly and plainly. And the Messenger of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he was the best role model for us. He showed us how to fulfill this obligation. He talked to different people in different ways. He showed us intelligence and wisdom in how to spread this message of Islam, how to talk about Islam to different kinds of people with different kinds of personalities, different kind of mindsets, different kind of upbringing. And when the more we learn the Seerah, the Hadith, the Quran, the more we'll understand. And inshallah, slowly and slowly, all of us will, whatever our capacity is, Allah Ta'ala will give us more and more knowledge and wisdom as time goes on. But we understand that the Prophet ﷺ fulfilled his obligation completely. And as his followers, we follow in his footsteps. We cannot reach his level, but we do whatever we can. And but we do the best that we can. But after we've done our best with somebody, let's say we are talking to a few different people, with one or two people, we've done our best. Then what can we do? Now it is for the people who have received the message to make a choice. Our job is only to convey the message, and then it is up to the other person whether they accept it or not. We cannot take the burden of somebody not accepting the message, right? Even the Prophet ﷺ, he used to get upset and sad a lot. He would be, there are places in the Quran when the Prophet, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told the Prophet sallallahu that Ya Rasulullah, will you kill yourself in sadness that these people are not accepting Islam? You cannot do this to yourself, right? That your job is only to convey the message, and now they have a choice. Allah ta'ala has given them a choice, and now it is up to them. So don't take more burden upon yourself than Allah Ta'ala has given you. Allah Ta'ala has given you the burden only to convey the message, right? And then we cannot force anybody. After this, then once the choice is given to the people and they understand it, of course, it's a different matter. If somebody's not understood it, then we try different ways. We try another way and another way and another way, and we don't ever give up. We keep trying. But then we don't take the burden of their accepting or not accepting on our own shoulders. Because once they have a choice, those who believe will be fully rewarded, while those who reject the truth will face the dire consequences of their rejection. And this clearly answers that, sometimes some people who are disbelievers or idolaters who don't believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they, when you start talking to them about Islam, they say that if they make this excuse that if my belief and actions were so bad and wrong, then and you say that Allah is all powerful and he controls all things, then why doesn't he just correct me and put me on the right path? Allah Ta'ala does not do that because He's given us a choice, because this life is a test and it's a choice. If there was no choice, then there is no test. Because if there is just one answer to the question, then there's no multiple choice. Then what is the test about? There's no test then. Right? The test is when there are multiple choices available, and then what are you going to choose? And that choice every person has to make for their own selves. Right. And then what we learn from this ayah is, if we look at the connection with the previous ayah, that we understand who Allah Ta'ala is, and now we are calling people to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. And then even after Ayat al-Kursi, if somebody is still not, even if that is not impacting somebody's heart, and then leave them, then don't force them. Then this deen, the main purpose of our religion is to seek the pleasure of Allah, which can only be achieved by someone who does it out of their own free will. If their own free will is not there, by force and compulsion, it defeats the whole purpose. Because when we force someone, what we can force them to do is we can force them to just follow some rituals or do some rituals. We cannot force intention in anybody's heart. The intention has to come from inside. So, for example, we can force somebody, no, you have to, we can like force somebody like, okay, on gunpoint, okay, you have to pray Salah. They will pray, they'll make those motions and everything. But if their heart is not there, if their intention is not for the sake of Allah, it is just for the sake of, okay, somebody's holding a gun on me, it does not work. And our religion has never worked like that. And when nobody has, obviously there are people who misinterpret things, but classically there's nobody who has done this, and no scholars ever say that you can force anybody to enter this religion. Right. And even when the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, when he came to Medina, he did not make Jews Muslims by force. He did not say that all those people who are Jews or all those people who are idol worshippers, they have to become Muslims tomorrow, or they have to accept Islam right away. No, that was not. The Jews were given the ability to practice their own thing and carry on. And even those people who were idol worshippers, they were told they can do their own thing, but they were given the message of Islam again and again. And we know that a lot of people who did not want to accept Islam, even they did after the Battle of Badr. Because what happened in Battle of Badr, the Muslims won, which was a victory which was miraculous by its own nature. That 300 people, more than just above 300 people, they defeated an army of 1,000 people who were well armed and prepared for war. And these 300 people who were not even armed. And clearly it was a miraculous victory. And it established Muslims as a force in the whole Arabian Peninsula. Then what happened after that? A lot of people who wanted power, who wanted recognition and everything, they accepted Islam for the sake of that. And we know about, for example, Abdullah ibn Ubay. We hear and we learn about hypocrisy before. So those diseases happen after. So why didn't the Prophet ﷺ force these people to become Muslims before? Because it is not allowed in our religion to force anybody to come to Islam, right? So that is something that is clearly not allowed. On the other hand, there are some people who misinterpret this phrase, La ikraha fid din, is as an excuse to disobey the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They say, okay, there's no compulsion in deen, so don't tell me to pray, or don't tell me to give zakat, or don't tell me to do this. But it does not mean that, sorry, just one second, please. So this does not mean that we can. I'm sorry about that. So this does not mean that we cannot. That we cannot. We don't have to follow any commandments or any rules or regulations in our religion. No, this is what this means is there's no compulsion in inviting or getting people to become Muslim. But once somebody is Muslim, there is a way of life to follow. There are some rules that are applicable. So we can, there, one simple way we can understand this is that if we think of immigration to any country, there are some laws that are applicable in India. There's some laws of the government or whatever way that people live in India, and these are the laws that people who live there have to follow. America has certain other laws that they have to follow. Maybe it's the side of the road that they drive in or whatever. Somebody who lives in India cannot be forced to immigrate to America. You cannot say that, okay, no, you have to come and live in America. But if somebody chooses to immigrate to America and they have taken their immigration and they come to live in America, when they're living there, they can't live by the rules of India now. They have to follow the rules of the place they live to, whether they move to America, whether they move to Canada. They have to follow the rules now. They have to follow now whatever is being told, whatever they have to do, right? So they cannot just say that no, I'll live here, but I'll follow those rules. No, once you enter there, you have to do that. If also think of it, we can also think of it like driving. For example, somebody sitting on a passenger seat, nobody's forcing them to like that they have to make the car stop on the red lights. They can't do it. They're not driving. But if they choose to take a driving license and now they choose to start driving, now they have to follow the rules. Now they have to follow the rules of driving. They have to stop at the right place. They have to do what they need to do. They have to follow. If they don't stop at a red light, then they will be fined. There are certain things that they have to follow now, right? So when so again, this does not mean that that what some people use this to say is that some people also say that by la ikraha fi din, it means that any punishments for any acts, like there are punishments for theft, there are punishments for different kind of corruption, there are punishments for different things. They say they're all invalid now. There's no need for any punishment. No, that is, again, we cannot do that because Islam is a whole system and with a whole valid penal code of its own, right? And which is meant to curb evil, disorder, and corruption on earth. Of course, we can't go and say in another country that, okay, we want to put the Islamic punishments and everything. It doesn't work like that. But wherever there is an Islamic state and wherever there is being followed, the laws and commandments of Islam is being followed, then we have those punishments in place. We have those things in place, and then we need to follow them, right? So we have to understand this very well, that every house, every nation, every organization has some rules that need to be followed. And these rules, when we become a part of that house, that nation, that organization, then we have to follow them. Then there is, it does not mean that we can just keep living whichever way we were living before and we can just ignore everything, right? So we have to do that. And for the people who are not Muslims in our families or in our friend circles and everything, what we are doing is, like, if we can't do anything, then what do we do after we've given them the message, after we've tried our best and they're still not accepting, they've understood, or maybe they've not understood some things, then what do we do? And just like the people of Medina were told, whose children were not Muslims and they were not ready to accept Islam while the parents had become Muslim, was that now you have to do sabr. You cannot force them, right? And you cannot, if you did not raise your children on Islam, for whatever reason, whether it was whether you didn't have that much knowledge before. Maybe some people are Muslims, but they were not very practicing Muslims before, and they did not raise their children too much on Islam. Now the children have grown up and they have a view of Islam that is just a part of their rituals, and they're not ready to do anything more. Now you cannot force them. Once they've gone on an age of a certain age, you can only tell them about it. You can only remind them, and what impacted you can only try that the same thing impacts them. So, for example, if we think of me and you, we also did not listen to others. The a majority of us, some of us do, but majority of us don't just accept a religion because somebody told us to accept a religion. We accept a religion. We accepted this religion because something touched our hearts. Because Allah Ta'ala showed us the signs when we were open to it, and Allah Ta'ala showed us different ways and different things, and something touched us about. Maybe it was about the Quran. Maybe it was an ayah from the Quran. Maybe it was more about the Quran. Maybe we heard something else that impacted our hearts. And when it impacted our hearts, then it changed us, right? And so what and we accepted Islam, and as we are learning the Quran, as we get closer to the Quran, it changes us. Every time we come closer to the Quran, it touches us, and it touches our hearts, and it changes us a little bit. It adds some more light to our life and everything. But sometimes what happens is we expect, just because I am coming here, I cannot expect the whole of my family to do the same thing and everything. They are not coming to these classes, they're not attending these things, they're not listening to these things. So what do? I carry that feeling. I try to share that feeling with them, because once they have their feeling, once their heart comes to Islam, then inshallah nobody will have to tell them to do things. They will want to do things for Allah Ta'ala by themselves, right? Until their heart has not come, then we cannot bring somebody there, right? And what can we do then? What else can we do to help people that we want, uh, for in our families, in our friend circles, to come to Islam? Is we try our best, and then and one thing that our scholar tells us is we make a lot of dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We in the night we wake up, we cry, we make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the During the daytime we care for people, we show the best of akhlaq, we show the best of manners, we show them love and care to our loved ones that we have. And when they need us for something, then we try and use that opportunity to sit and tell them a little bit about deen when and where we can, right? When in whichever way we can help somebody when their heart is or their mind is open to us. At that time, we ask Allah Ta'ala to first of all see that opportunity, that Ya Allah, give us the tawfiq, give me the tawfiq to understand when I have the right opportunity, and give me the wisdom to say the right things at the right time, to utilize when I have this thing, right? And it's a continuous process. Sometimes it's a process that with some people it takes just 3, 4, 5 interactions and they are convinced. With some people it takes years for them to understand the message. And that's something, again, that a skill that we all need to learn. So for example, somebody who's a new cook, what they would do is, if they're cooking something, they'll make one cut and leave it if it doesn't turn out good. A seasoned cook, on the other hand, they'll keep making small cuts. If they're going to marinate something, what they do is they make a lot of small cuts, and they put the flavor all inside and everything. It takes a long time, but it's all well made and everything, right? Another thing is that we should not always use sarcasm, or we should not keep like pointing out the mistakes, like, you're not doing this, you're not doing this, you should do this, you're not doing this. What happens is, when we are being sarcastic, or when we are just telling people, do this, do this, do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, a lot of times what that will do is it will make people stubborn in what they're doing, even if their mind sees it, but they'll become more stubborn. So what we need to do is, we should and there's a saying that one of our teacher uses, is that when you're doing dawah, the purpose is not to invoke people's ego. The purpose is to invoke people's fitra, right? So try not to hurt people's ego, because sometimes their ego will then become, for some people, they're very sensitive, their egos are very sensitive, and if their ego feels hurt, then they'll just be like, I'm not going to listen to you, whatever you say and do, just like they'll just switch off, right? But again, different people are different personalities, but our purpose is not to activate their egos. Our purpose is to activate their fitra, which is their internal mechanism that Allah Ta'ala has already given us. And by this, that Allah Ta'ala has shown us that قَدْ تَبَيَّنَ الرُّشْدُ مِنَ الْغَيِّ, that the right path is very clear from the wrong path. And how do we know that, as opposed to the wrong path? There are several ayat in the Quran, first of all, that make it very clear. For example, Ayat al-Kursi, which is the peak of the whole Quran. The whole Quran, in fact, tells us the right path. Some of the scholars say that Surah Fatiha is the opening, and the rest of the whole Quran is the answer to the dua in Surah Fatiha, when we say, Ihdina siratal mustaqim, siratal ladhina an'amta alayhim, غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. And the answer to this dua is the whole of the Quran, which tells us what is the right path, what is the path of those who invoke the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and what is the path of those who were misguided or misled. So the whole Quran is telling us that. So the path is very clear, and there are several ayat which stand out, obviously, in that regard. One is Ayat al-Kursi, another is Ayat Kauni, that makes it very clear for us that what is in the like what are the signs in around us in the universe, that when we look at it, it becomes clear to us that there can be only one God and everything. And there's other ayat like Ayat Bir, which tells us what is goodness. And when we understand that ayat, we understand truly, if we look at the world around us, we understand that yes, truly, this is goodness, and anything else can lead to deviation, even if we try to follow it, because there's certain hidden agendas and certain things. Another thing is that we have this, Allah Ta'ala has put this navigation, like we were talking about the fitra. Allah Ta'ala has put this navigation inside each one of us. And what is this navigation? We learn at another place in the Quran that Allah Ta'ala asked, when He created all of us as souls, He asked each one of us before sending us to earth, Alastu bi Rabbik, right? Am I not your Lord? And all of us responded that yes, indeed you are our Lord. And then He told us to worship Him alone before. And we all have this in our fitra. So when a person with a pure fitra comes and understands about Islam, when he comes in touch with Islam, the purer the fitra is, the less contaminated the fitra is. As soon as that person will come in contact with Islam, whether the true Islam, whether it is at the age of 5, 10, 20, 40, 50, 70, 80, even 99, they will recognize it right away and they'll accept it because they will understand it right away, right? And because of this clarity, of course, there is no force. Because it is so clear, there is no need for any force. Because for example, if a child, we ask a child to do something when they're very little, we say, okay, you need to do this, get up and have a shower, and they'll like, no, I don't want to do it, but then they'll do it. But when they get a bit older, they're like, okay, why do I need to do it? Okay, tell me the reason why I should do it. I'm not going to do it. You explain it clearly. Why do I need to have a shower every day? If I have it 2 days or once in a week, why is it not enough, right? But then we have to explain to them, like, what, our body gets these germs, and might get sweaty, or you might start smelling a little bit, and it might be a good idea to have a shower every day, or this and that. Like, we explain to them clearly, and then they understand. If we don't explain to them, even if a child has grown up and they don't want to do something, then the only other way is by force, right? And this obviously, because it is so clear, because this guidance, because something is so clear, there's no need for force in it. When we explain to our children very clearly, this is how it is good for you, then you do this, then it becomes clear and they do it. If they want the good for themselves, and if they truly understand it and everything, they do it. So similarly, in the deen, Allah Ta'ala has made this deen very clear through our insight, which is our fitra, through the science of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the universe, and through the science of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran. Allah Ta'ala makes it clear to us in different ways. And once it becomes really, really clear, then we accept Islam, and then we follow its guidelines. There's no forcing anybody in this. And then Allah Ta'ala tells us what happens after that is, then whoever disbelieves in the Tawhut and believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the order here, first of all, is so beautiful, because the first step is not just to believe in Allah Ta'ala. First step is to reject the Tawhut, right? So to reject the Tawhut, first of all, is more important, right? So Tawhut, what it means is, um, it is disobedience, and like we said, it is exceeding the limits of something. So what are the limits? How are the different ways that the limits can be exceeded? So for example, somebody might accept Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by words. He might say that, okay, I accept Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yes, as a God and everything, but in their heart they don't believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then what is that? That is called nifaq. That is hypocrisy. That if somebody accepts by mouth but not in their hearts. Another group of people could be that somebody who accepts by words, they understand in their heart, but they're disobedient openly. They're still like, they'll keep doing things of disobedience of Allah subhanahu. They're engaging in relationships that they should not be engaged in. They are cheating people in business. They're lying. They're insensitive to people around them. They're kind of like taking the property or the money of the orphans, and they're not doing any forget doing charity. They're cheating people out of their rights and everything. They're behaving badly with people in their own families, and they're cutting ties of their of their kinship in their family and everything. So what is that person doing? That person is doing fisk, right? It's there is a lot of corruption inside them, and that corruption is starting to come out, and that is fisk, right? And another kind of people could be that people who are not obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they don't even accept Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're like, no, I don't believe. And they could be atheist of today, and we call them, so that is kufr, right? That a person rejects the presence or the control of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala over their life. Another level is a person who becomes, who transgresses the limits so much that he or she, raises himself to the point of he wants himself to be worshipped. So for example, Firaun, he said that I am your Lord. He wanted people to worship himself. So like a ruler, for example, who says, I give you a command to follow, and you have to follow this command, even if it is against the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he transgresses the limits and is very severe in rejecting of the faith. This rejecting and is so severe that it hurts other people, and the person who's doing it, or the entity who's doing it, or the thing that is doing it, or the idea that is doing it, is very arrogant in itself. So, for example, shaitan, when shaitan is what shaitan is doing is he's taking people away from the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's transgressing the limit in a very severe way, right? And so Taghut is everything or every entity that transgresses the limit of obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and who, for example, in terms of leaders and rulers or shaitan, it could be that instead of worshipping Allah, worship me instead. Astaghfirullah. So Taghut is the one who is worshipped besides Allah, anything or anybody who's worshipped besides Allah, and he's pleased with that worship, right? He is pleased with that fact that there's these people are worshipping me, or these things are worshipping me, or everything. Or it could also mean someone who calls to the worship of such false gods, and that is obviously devil, the shaitan, who calls people to the worship of other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And taghut could be an entity like an idol, a person, a living person, a person who's dead, or it could be a thing like somebody could be worshipping. For example, they're so addicted to their sleeping, for example, that they don't want to get up for Fajr. Or somebody who's so addicted to their ego, or they're so addicted to their popularity that to gain more popularity, they don't care if they are transgressing the limits or the bounds set by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or, for example, there is a ruler. What the ruler says is, okay, for example, knowing very clearly that this is a command of Allah, they say they ban hijab, that okay, hijab is not allowed, or they ban salah, that it's not allowed to pray salah in this area. That is clearly the way of Tawhid, that anything that takes us away from the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Tawhid. So to believe in, before believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have to reject the Tawhid, which is very important, which is also the same style as the Shahada, La ilaha illallah. That even before we accept Allah, the first step before we understand and accept and believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to reject other than Allah. Because until we reject other than Allah, we're not going to be able to understand or accept Allah Ta'ala like he should be accepted. Because so La ilaha, just like La ilaha is a sword that cuts off the heads of all the tawhid, right? So and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not like shirk of any kind. He does not like any associations with him. He is alone, and he deserves to be worshipped as alone. So first, we have to cut off every tawhid, whether it's our own ego and our own, sometimes we follow our close ones, people who we are close to, and to make the people who we are close to pleased with us, sometimes we disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then that becomes a tawhid, that our love for the people that we love, if and that love is a love that is given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, alhamdulillah, that we are supposed to, we can and we should love people in our families, and we should do things for them. But when in doing things for them, or when in trying to please them, we are not bothered about displeasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that love has exceeded its bounds. Then that love has become taghut for us, right? When it stays within the boundaries of what has been made permissible by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that is healthy for us. Then that goes towards pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then even if I'm cooking some food for my children, if I make that intention, it is for the pleasure of Allah ta'ala. Even if I am cleaning my house and I'm making this intention that Ya Allah, you like cleanliness, or you like if whoever comes to my house would be pleased, or my family would be pleased, or my family would be more comfortable, then it is for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then that is something that is totally allowed. Then it doesn't become taghut. But if I become so obsessive in it that I start cleaning, and I'm so obsessed with cleaning and having a sparkling house, clear, like a shiny sparkling house everywhere, that my namaz time comes and goes and I'm not bothered, I'm like, no, 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 let me finish this, or let me just keep doing this, then of course that becomes a tawhid for me. So first of all, the bigger fight the Prophet ﷺ told us in hadith is, the bigger jihad is the internal jihad rather than the external jihad. Internal jihad is more difficult than the external jihad, right? So first we have to break these chains within us, right? And if we remember one night in grave, then no one can obviously stop us. Then we will understand this. So the more we understand something, the more we are stronger. Then people won't be, nothing can shake us if we are strong ourselves. So Allah Ta'ala tells us that when we believe in this is the progression that Allah Ta'ala is teaching us. So first of all, we have to disbelieve in the Taghut. Once we disbelieve in the Taghut, then we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then what happens as our belief keeps increasing, then we have surely held on to a handhold which is very, very firm. This is not going to break. This is something that, like when somebody is shaky themselves, when someone is shaking themselves, then they can be taken away easily. Then if somebody is weak themselves, then they can be pushed away from the path. But when somebody is strong, then it is very hard to move them. So all right. So when we hold on to this strong handhold, some people have said, some scholars have said this strong handhold is the Quran itself, right? That when we hold on tightly to the Quran, then namaz, salah, and the fasting and everything, they don't seem like a they don't seem like a big deal and everything. They can't shake us. They can't shake us at all, right? And we can't do that. So these are then those things feel very small in terms of then we want to do more things for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then when we want to sacrifice more for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and everything. Sorry about that. Um, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry. Um, so I was talking. We were talking about the handhold, the strong handhold. That some say that's the Quran. And then when we hold the Deen of Allah Taala strongly, when we are strong, very strong towards it, then what happens is then we are not shaken very easily, right? So if, for example, if we think of the example of Asiya, radiallahu anha, Asiya was the wife of Firaun. Now she was married to the most powerful human being at that time on the earth in terms of the power, in terms of kingship. He had authority, he had money, he had power. She was married to him. She was living with him in the palace. With him, she was married to him. So obviously, he had a lot of control over her. And yet, when she developed this strong faith in Allah Ta'ala, then nothing could shake her. Even her husband, who is the king, and so he can give her all the desires of the world. He can supply her everything that she wants. She can get all the luxuries. So he can lure her away. He can try. Obviously, he would have tried when she believed in the Lord of Musa Islam, and when she said she believed in Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, he would have tried by luring her that he had all the luxuries that are apparent, that are clear. So he would have done that. And if we think of the punishments he could have, and obviously he did order her execution, and she was executed in a very painful way and everything. But she was so strong, even in face of death. She was like, no. And then what did she make? It's in later on in the Quran we say, Rabbi ibn li, Ya Allah, build for me near you a house in paradise. Even when she was asking for a house in paradise, the first thing was she didn't ask for a house first. She asked for near you first, right? Rabbi ibn li indaka baitan fil jannah. Ya Allah, build for me near you a house in paradise. So she rejected the house that the pharaoh was going to give her, right? This huge mansion and everything. She could not see the house in Jannah, yet she wanted that house in Jannah. She wanted that house near Allah Ta'ala. Near Allah Ta'ala was her primary concern, and then the second was that I want a house in Jannah. So when we become strong ourselves, the thing is that people cannot shake us, things cannot shake us. And then sometimes when we start to walk the path of Islam, when we start to do things in a way that Allah Ta'ala has asked us to do, we hear things from people who are our own loved ones, which might be very hurtful, which might be very sarcastic, which might pain us, which might actually cause us a lot of grief and pain. That how could this person who, I was very close to this person, this friend, let's say, I was very close to this friend, and she used to love me so much, and she was always there for me and everything. But as soon as I started, let's say, doing hijab, or, like I didn't want to go to certain kinds of parties anymore, and I didn't want to hang out with certain groups of people anymore, then all of a sudden, this same person whom I still love, but this person is showing so much hatred towards me, and she's always making these sarcastic comments about me and this thing and that thing. It can really hurt a person a lot. And even sometimes by our own family, sometimes we are doing so much and then be like, why are you always this? How does it? And sometimes this sarcasm comes in the form of people who are loving and caring for us, even like, and they generally want in their minds, they're doing something, they're trying to be like, why are you doing this to yourself? Like, for example, if you just think of hijab, they'd be like, you have beautiful hair, and you were like, you used to be like so nicely dressed up, and now look at you, you look like also old. You've started looking so old, like you're not looking your age, and this and that. And so people will say things like that, and people who love us and whom we love, they will say things like that, and they will really, really hurt. But when they hurt, then it is a good time to remember that Wallahu Sami'un Ali. That first of all, if we have held strong to this deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it is not going to break, first of all. This is anything else in the world can break, but this will not break. This is something that will stay, that will stick, right? And another thing is that Allah Ta'ala knows that in holding on to this strong handhold, this firm handhold of Islam, whatever we go through, Allah Ta'ala is all hearing of it. Um, Allah Ta'ala knows exactly what is going on, and He hears everything and He knows everything, right? And this is and how some people have also said that this handhold is taqwa, right? Some people have said it's Quran, some people have said it's taqwa, because if taqwa is not there, then what happens is, then we become loose and we start to slip a little bit, right? But when we have taqwa, then even if a lot of people stand against us, even if a lot of people we love stand against us, we will be able to stand firm. Even if there are a lot of attraction all around us, those things that we really love all around us, we will be able to keep ourselves firm. Like, for example, we can think of a swimmer. If somebody is swimming, they're very safe in a swimming pool. They don't really need anything. They can just swim easily and everything. But if they're in an ocean, and in the ocean there's a very nasty storm that's going on, then they need something to hold on to. In fact, so the more we go through the challenges of this life, sometimes the challenges of this life, the troubles that we go through, they bring us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because then we realize the importance of, I need to hold on to something. I need something to save me, because I know I'm slipping. I know I'm drowning under the pressures of my life. Then what will happen is, then when I hold on to something, then I really feel the importance of it. That then I feel it, that this handhold, this thing that I'm holding on to, is saving me from something. It's saving me from myself, first of all, right? And so difficulties, in one sense, make our iman strong, and Allah Ta'ala knows that as well. And so he is all hearing and all knowing. He knows what to give us. He knows that what do I need in my life that will bring me closer to Him, and what is best for me. So he gives us these things. Sometimes He tests us with pleasure, sometimes He tests us with happiness, sometimes He tests us with pain, and sometimes He tests us with loss, sometimes He tests us with some suffering, right? So something, or some struggles, or something, it will happen, and we'll all go through that. Another thing that some scholars have said is that to disbelieve in the Tawhut could also mean that we have to sometimes stand up against the people who are doing wrong. So, for example, people in Arabia at that time, they had a lot of practices, like they would bury the baby girl alive, and they would think that they've got some honor out of it by burying their own child alive in under the earth and everything. And so and people would, for some weird reason, they would feel that it's something really good and everything, right? But the first thing Islam teaches, to stand up against the incorrect practices, stand up against the practices which are against Islam. So some, in our workplaces, in our families, we might come across people who are doing injustices to people around, and we all will come across that. We'll come across people in our families, in our communities, in our workplaces, in our education systems. We'll see some people doing injustice, whether they're doing it knowingly or whether they're doing it unknowingly. And we'll also come across people who are doing injustice, and they're proud of it as well. And they are so arrogant about it. They're hurting other people, but yet they're arrogant about it, about their power, about their authority, about their money. They have they have basically exceeded all these limits. So we will need to stand up against them at some point, obviously with wisdom. Doesn't mean that Allah Ta'ala doesn't tell us that we have to just go and stand in the line of fire and then just martyr ourselves. No, we have to, and we ask Allah Ta'ala for wisdom, even in facing the Taghut. But first thing is we deny it in our own hearts first. We understand when we see some wrong practice, we understand this is wrong. And we deny it in our own hearts, and we believe in Allah Ta'ala that, Ya Allah, you are the one who's pure, and you tell me what is right and what is wrong. And then we hold on tight to the whatever things Allah Ta'ala teaches us and gives us. Then Allah Ta'ala will keep us firm. If we have istiqamat, if we try to stay firm, and that this is another concept that will come again and again in the Quran, that the more we stay firm, then Allah Ta'ala keeps us firm as well, right? And like even if you have nobody, then we have Allah Ta'ala. And this Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is he? We learned more in Ayatul Kursi, but here Allah Ta'ala tells us two of his names, that he is all hearing and all knowing, that he knows that like whatever everybody is doing, despite that, if we are standing firm, he knows the struggles that we are facing, and he knows what we are. Even if nobody knows, he knows what we are facing to stay firm on the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also in the context of this ayah, that when we're talking of Taghut, anybody who's turning towards the Taghut instead of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then know that anybody, if anybody is worshipping anybody other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they're putting their hopes in this other being, then understand these other beings, they are themselves unaware of their own beginning and end. Then how can they take care of you, right? Let alone their followers and everything. Like the Taghut, they are themselves not ever living. They're not all knowing. They don't know. They don't know about your worship. So if let's say somebody's worshiping an idol, or somebody's worshiping a person who's passed away long time back, what happens is when you're worshiping somebody who's passed away, they are themselves, the one you're worshiping doesn't even know that you're worshiping him. Then how can they don't they themselves had a beginning and an end. Then how can they take care of you? They don't even know about it. How will they answer your prayers? They don't even know you're praying, let alone what your prayers are and how to answer them, or to have the power to answer them, right? And one thing about the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when we learn the names and qualities and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sometimes they sound similar to what our own qualities are. Like we say that I can hear something, and when we say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all hearing, what is the difference between these two? Right? Our qualities that I have, even though the words might be similar, the names of these qualities might be similar, the qualities that any of the creation has are the qualities that have been given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whereas the qualities of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are his own. He owns them. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all hearing, he owns hearing. When he's all knowing, then he owns all knowledge, right? And our qualities have limits. The second point is that our qualities have limits. Allah's qualities are unlimited. For example, all hearing. If, for example, when my thing muted, when my microphone was muted, you couldn't hear what I was saying, right? And but if right I'm speaking, the microphone is unmuted, you can hear me, and vice versa. I can hear you when you're speaking that. But if you mute yourself, or if you go to the other room and you're saying something, you're not in front of your computer, my hearing is limited. I cannot hear what you're doing or saying. If I said something yesterday when this Skype meeting was not on, or when this meeting was not on, you couldn't have heard me at all. My hearing is limited. What is happening in the house next to mine, I don't know. I can't hear it right now. I can only hear what is limited. I have a limited hearing. I have a limited seeing. I can't see beyond a wall. If there's a wall in front of me, I can't see what's happening beyond that, unless there is a certain device or a camera or something like that, right? So all the qualities that any of the creation has is limited. It's not unlimited, but whereas Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's attributes, they are unlimited. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hears, but he hears everything. There's nothing that he doesn't hear. There's no sound that he doesn't hear. He hears every single thing. Another thing is that our qualities have a beginning and an end. Like there was a time that I could not hear anything, but then this quality was given to me, and there might be a time in my life later on that this hearing might be taken away from me. I might not have this. There was a time that I didn't know about a lot of things. Then Allah Ta'ala gave me knowledge about some things. And there might be a time later in my life, may Allah Ta'ala protect, that the knowledge might be taken away from me. Like some people suffer from dementia, some people suffer from memory loss, and they don't understand, they don't remember anything. May Allah Ta'ala protect each one of us from that. But it is possible because our qualities are not timeless, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's qualities are timeless. They were always there and they will always be. There is no time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could not hear anything. There will never be a time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not hearing. Another thing is that the qualities of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are uniquely manifested. So what that means is that how I understand hearing is based on my own experiences. What is hearing like? But Allah Ta'ala's hearing is not like, he does not need a ear to, I need a ear, I need a nose to smell, I need a mouth to speak, I need a tongue and certain things to speak. Like I need, there are some facilities, some things that I need to be able to do things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not need, it does not work like that. And I cannot never understand that because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is unique and his qualities are unique as well. When we say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mutakabbir, like he is the only one who deserves to be praised, and he's declared that he deserves to be praised. But any creation, any human being, if I declare that I deserve to be praised, that is arrogant. That is not correct. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can do it because he's different. He's not like any of the creation, right? So it is important for us to understand, and Allah ta'ala shows us through his, one of the beauties of the Quran and the hadith is that we understand more and more about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through his names and attributes, because there is no other way to understand the qualities of Allah ta'ala. How will we understand? We can look at the universe around us and we can look at the Quran, and then it will teach us more and more about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We cannot imagine what he's like because that is something of ghaib. The only information that we have is through the Quran, which is the true correct information that we have. And then when we hold on to this thing, then Allah Ta'ala tells us what happens then is that Allahu waliyul ladina amanu yukhrijuhum min adh-dhulumati ila an-nur. That Allah is our wali. Allah is our supporter. What does wali mean? Wali means a supporter, a person who cheers us, the person who's a friend, the one who gives us help, and he's our constant companion, and he becomes the one that we lean on, right? And what does Allah Ta'ala do is that he takes us out of not just one darkness, of many, 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 many kinds of darknesses, right? And one thing that is so beautiful here is that the nur is talked of in singular and dhulumat is talked of in plural. That Allah is the one who takes out those who believe. He takes them out of darknesses towards the light, right? So there are many darknesses. The path of darkness are many and varied, but the path of guidance is only one, and that is Islam. And we also learn that the origin of the subtle point here is the origin of light and truth is only one, which is Allah. There is no confusion, no fragmentation in this light. There is one source from which the light comes, and this light then lights up everything. It takes us out of more and more. The more we engage with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more we learn about the Quran, the more we learn about the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more we keep trying to get nearer and nearer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more we try to do things that please him, the more we try to stay away from things that don't please him, the more he brings us out from the darkness. The more we ask him to guide us, the more he guides us. The more he takes us out of different kinds of darknesses. And what could these darknesses be? Darkness could be jahalat, which is ignorance, and one of the darkness could be bad manners. The more we learn from, for example, there is a child who's very ill-mannered and very like rude to the parents and everything, and something happens in this child's life and he becomes a Muslim or she becomes a Muslim. Then what happens is, as she learns more about Islam, then she learns that in Islam there's a lot of emphasis on the rights of parents on children. And then the more she learns about it, the more she or he thinks that, remembers that, oh, I have been so mean to my parents at this time. I said this, which was very rude to them at this time. The more he or she learns about this, the more she remembers, when I was a teenager, I said this or I did this and everything, and the guilt increases. And what can they do for their guilt if their parents are still alive? What they'll do is they'll try to do good things for them now. They're like, okay, let me make up. I can't undo the past. What's done is done. First of all, I'll seek forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ya Allah, forgive me for what I did with all my relationships, like whether it was my parents, my children, my spouse, my friends, my community, my colleagues, whatever I did wrong to them, Ya Allah, forgive me. And then they'll try to make amends for whoever they have not been nice to. So if in this case of this child, if this child was not good to their parents, they'll start to do good things for them. Let me buy them some gifts. Let me, if my mom's having she's having, her feet are hurting, let me sit and press her feet a little bit. Let me bring her, let me cook something that she likes to do, or let me try to make things easy for her, or do anything that will please her heart, basically. The more the child does that, so basically what is happening is Allah Ta'ala is bringing that person through Islam. Allah Ta'ala brings that person out of the darkness of bad manners, right? Similarly, from jahalat, like we don't have knowledge about certain things, Allah Ta'ala keeps giving us knowledge about more and more and more things. Little things, we keep getting knowledge every day and every day. Another thing is our salah. The more we come closer to Allah Ta'ala, the more we keep adding to our salah, the more we are like, Ya Allah, just farz is not enough. I need to do more. I need to do sunnah as well. I need to start praying my sunnah as well. Ya Allah, I memorized four surahs from the Quran to be able to pray my salah. I learned one surah before, I learned surah class, and then I learned this surah and that surah. Ya Allah, I want to pray different surahs at different times. So Ya Allah, I want to memorize more of the Quran. Right? So they'll keep adding more. They'll maybe their ruku will get longer. Maybe their sujood will get longer. Maybe the kind of attention that they have, and that is something that all of us work throughout our lives, that yeah, like keep increase my khushu in my prayer. But they'll pray for it more, they'll do it more, right? So their namaz will get more and more beautiful. Their and so they'll get out of a lot of different kind of darknesses. Even sometimes somebody, in the name of relationships, sometimes a lot of people are abused, and we know that in today's day and age a lot more. And that we see that somebody's like, oh, I love you, and there is a lot of emotional blackmail, and why won't you do this, you won't do this for me and that for me. And then in a lot of societies we see it leads to abuse and different things like that, and people are like, so the both the victim and the oppressor, they're both in certain kind of darknesses. The oppressor is who's abusing, let's say a husband is abusing his wife, then the husband is in darkness because he's doing the oppression. The wife is in darkness because she's a victim of unjust behavior, of not being cared for. She deserves to be cared for, but she's not being cared for. The husband, he needs to be nice, he needs to protect for his to his family. He needs to be the one who's protecting his wife, not the one who's harming her himself. So whether it could be as simple as making sarcastic comments, not even, maybe he's doesn't harm her physically or anything, but he's not kind to her, maybe, or maybe he's not there for her when she needs help. So it could be different ways, but both of them are in certain kind of darkness. And if both of them start getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and start trying to follow the way that things that Allah ta'ala asks us to do things, then the man will realize, you know what, this woman has rights upon me. She's my wife. I have made her halal upon myself in the name of Allah. Right? I've kept Allah as a witness, and then I married this lady, and she's become my wife, and she's born children for me. And she's raising these this one, two, three people who are more, or more children, who are the ummah, or the people of the ummah of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. I need to be kind to this lady. I need to be nice to her. She's doing her best to raise the children and give them the knowledge of Islam and everything. So he can, the more he comes closer to Allah Ta'ala himself, the more he's able to behave in a nicer way, right? And same goes with a woman. When she sees that, okay, if she's a victim, for example, if she sees that, you know what, my like my unquestioned loyalty is there for Allah Ta'ala only. And I'm supposed to love and care for my husband, but there are certain limits. And then I don't cross those limits as well. For example, when it is time for my salah, if the time is ending, so I'm sorry, I know you're there, and I know you're hungry, I'll give you food. If there is some time, I'll stop and give you food, then I can pray in 10-15 minutes and go. But then if there's not much time left, I'm sorry, you'll have to wait, right? And that will establish certain boundaries into relationships too, and that will avoid, because when we establish boundaries into a relationship, then then the and when those boundaries are firm, then the chances of abuse are reduced, because then nobody takes anybody for granted, everybody's there for each other. So it's like in different ways, whether it is very clear or whether it is very subtle. When we become closer to Allah Ta'ala, He'll bring us out of lot of darknesses and of different kinds again. But what will happen on the other hand, and of course the first thing is that when we come to Noor, the first thing that we obviously let go of is shirk, right? And that is the biggest darkness of all. The dhulm, as we've talked before, is dhulm is darkness, and dhulm is also putting something, there are two meanings. One is darkness, and one is doing dhulm is to put something where it doesn't belong. So we've talked about that, right? And according to a hadith from the Prophet ﷺ, the dhulm will be in the shape of dhulm, dhulumat in on the day of judgment. What does that mean? Is that our sins or our bad deeds or our things that we do, which was dhulm to others, will show, will become apparent on the day of judgment in the form of darkness. So the person who has done a lot of sins, there'll be a lot of darkness around them. And the people who try to please Allah Ta'ala, who do things for Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, and to keep getting doing good and good things, they'll be full of noor. So much so that and the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam told us that how will he recognize his own ummah is because their hands would be glowing from the wudu that they do. The wudu that they do, what we'll do is on the day of judgment, our hands, because of the wudu that we have been doing in our life, because of that we've been cleaning ourselves, we have been taking care of our things. So our hands would be glowing, our faces would be glowing. Inshallah, may Allah Ta'ala make us of those people. And the Taghut, on the other hand, what they do is they, once somebody is away from Allah Ta'ala, then they are literally taken over by Taghut, right? Whoever turns away from Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, they wander off the path. And what happens then is they are taken over by the devil and his associates. Then they entice him away from light of reason, from evidence from nature, and they take them into error, and they keep them in constant confusion, because those people who are wandering in darkness, they keep wandering here and there, and sometimes here, sometimes there. Like there is a saying that an empty house is haunted by demons, right? So empty house is a heart, and in a similar note, a heart that is devoid of true human aspirations, which is trying to get closer to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, which is the aim of our life. That heart turns into a devil's retreat, because then devil literally plays with that heart. Then that is like, okay, makes him want things that are like bizarre, more and more bizarre day by day. Like if we look at the world today, then we will totally understand, like some of the things we listen that some people are doing and saying, we're like, how can any, no, forget religion, how can any normal sensible human being even want to do these things that some people are doing, or even think that this is okay to do? Sometimes we see people like being so cruel to somebody else, and we are like shocked. We are like, I could not even imagine a human being could be like this. But how did they turn like this? Because they let their heart become a devil's playground. Because when they kept going away and away and away from Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, and then we learn, what does Allah Ta'ala do? Allah Ta'ala calls people once, He gives them chances upon chances upon chances, and after that He lets them go. Okay, if you want to go, go then. Go further then. Go away. And that is the biggest misfortune of all. Because when we turn to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, He helps us, He supports us. He gradually frees us from the bondage of our lusts, our desires. He brings us out of darknesses of polytheism, of worshipping different things. He brings us out of darknesses of unbelief and hypocrisy and ignorance and, wrong behavior, wrong manners, and everything, to the path of perfect faith and pure monotheism. Like he does that for all of us. And kafaru here, the people who disbelieve, could refer to people, even those who hold on to Islam so lightly that they are like, they don't want to get in to Islam totally. They're like, I'll do a little bit, yeah, whatever is there, and they're not too bothered about it. They, on the face of it, they're, yeah, I'm Muslim, but they're not too bothered about the commands of Allah. They're like, yeah, I know it's haram, but yeah, whatever. I'll just still do a little bit of it. Now the thing is, there's a difference between somebody who is, they are addicted to something. Let's say somebody is alcoholic. They're addicted to alcohol. they understand that it is not permissible and they're trying to leave it, but they're not being able to. They're like they're saying every day I seek forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then the next day I start drinking again, and I keep apologizing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I just can't control myself. Now that is one kind of a person. That is different. Another kind of person is, yeah, I know it's haram, but who cares? I'll just drink anyway. It's too good, man. I mean, come on, we only live once, right? YOLO. And what can we do? Now, that is something different. That is something which is disbelief. No, doing sin does not make us a kafir, but doing sin and not being bothered about that sin, not seeking Allah's forgiveness from that sin, that is something that takes us to disbelief. And so what we should do is we should ask Allah Ta'ala to grant us taqwa, to take us away from dhulumat into nur. Like there's a dua, Allahumma ati nafsi taqwaha. Allahumma akhrijna min dhulumati ila nur. Ya Allah, take us out of the darknesses into nur. And the last dua that Allah Ta'ala taught us, that humanity, and Allah Ta'ala tells us in what happened in our past, where the story of humanity began. And Allah Ta'ala also teaches us in Quran and another place in the Quran what will be the last dua of human beings. And the last dua would be that Rabbana atmim lana nurana waghfir lana innaka ala kulli shay'in qadir. Ya Allah, perfect our light for us. Right? Rabbana atmim lana nurana, that complete our light for us. Waghfir lana, and forgive us. Innaka ala kulli shay'in qadir. Indeed, you are the one who's most powerful over everything. So when so the light is something that we will need a lot. And Allah Ta'ala tells us more about light. One of the other places that He tells about light is that in Surah Nur, like there's a whole surah with the name of light. And the central ayah in that is Allahu Nurus Samawati wal Ard, that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is Himself the light of the heavens and the earth. And light here means guidance, the light of reason, the light of practical moral light. And this light, it brightens our heart and mind, and our conduct and character. It develops all of it of people of faith. Whereas the darkness, what it does is it takes us away from the right path, and it covers our mind and heart. And the reasoning changes over a period of time. The person's thinking changes, and they develop these characteristics which are weird, which are like, this is not natural and everything, right? Light, if we look at in our day-to-day experience, we can think of the experience of light, and we can draw connections with it. Like for example, in terms of this light, the life on this planet, the source of our life is light, right? It's nourishment and life for plants. For example, when we're not exposed to enough light, what do we have? We have a deficiency of vitamin D, right? And studies around the world are showing that the lack of sunlight is leading to depression. Like in winters, there is a lot more sadness, and people who suffer from anxiety and depression, it increases in winters, especially in countries where we have long nights in winters and everything, right? Whereas if you think of light, the imagery that comes into our mind is that it's a source of beauty. The same place, if I visit a town in the night, and then the same place if I visit in the morning, the place looks totally different, because sometimes the trail of woods, for example, it will look so beautiful during the day, but the same trail of woods would be like a set for a horror movie during the night, right? So the light, what does light do? Light gives beauty to something, and it brings out the hidden beauty. Sometimes there is a beauty in certain thing or a place, and then when there is light, then that beauty comes out, right? So, and light is also a source of direction, that sometimes light is the only way to see which way we are going, right? Supposing there is a highway that we are driving on and there are no lights on it, and then the highway is like twists and turns and everything, and there's no other light, nothing's going on, there's a storm going on, and we're driving, and then we're like, oh my god, I just hope I don't end up in a ditch. Then what happens? There's a very tiny light, but there's those reflectors on the middle of the road. Sometimes we just follow them and drive, right? That okay, at least I know I'm on the road, I'll just drive slowly, but I drive next to these reflectors so that I know I'm on the road, and I don't end up in a ditch or anything, right? So that even that tiny light from that reflector helps us. So light helps us to see the direction and everything, right? And if another thing with light is, if I'm blind myself, then no matter how much light is around me, I'll still not be able to see, right? So what happens is when to see the light around me, to see the things around me, I have to open my own eyes, right? And we cannot force anybody to open their eyes and everything. So to come out of darkness into light and to hold on to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to understand that He is our wali, that He knows what is going on with us and everything. We have to follow Him. We have to understand Him. We have to take Him as our wali. Because uh, another thing here is, which is so beautiful, is that Allah Ta'ala, in terms of grammar, the terminology that Allah Ta'ala has used here is Allahu Waliyu, right? That Allah is the wali. He's described him as a wali, which is a noun here, not as a something that he's doing, but he is like that, which means that he's always protecting and looking out for someone. Even before I accepted Islam, he was still my wali. He was still taking care of me when I was in my mother's womb. He was still protecting me. He was still taking care of me. I didn't even know him. There were so many years of my life that I didn't know that the name of God was Allah. Yet he was still being my wali. I didn't know him. He was still my protective friend. He was still taking care of me. But now that I hold on to him, of course, if he was taking care of me at that time when I didn't even know him, then how will he leave me when I now know him? When I know that who he is. And this is a big relief, a big motivation to people who are believers, and yet they have shortcomings. Like I have hundreds of shortcomings and I try to overcome them every day, yet sometimes they defeat me. Sometimes I may be able to get past them, sometimes they do defeat me. But Allah Ta'ala telling us that He's always a wali for me is something that gives me confidence that, Ya Allah, I know I'm a sinner. Ya Allah, I know I have many shortcomings, but I know that you're still there for me, that you're still my wali, and you'll still keep. And I am in certain darknesses, but I know you will take me out of them. You will slowly take me. You have taken me out of many darknesses, but there are some more darknesses in my life. That there's temptation, there's greed, there's despair. Sometimes I get hopeless. Sometimes I'm, like I'm lazy. Sometimes there could be shame and guilt. There could be lots of emotions, even internal, even there could be lots of darknesses. But Allah Ta'ala will take us out. There could be depression. There could be anxiety. But inshallah, Allah Ta'ala will take us out of it. But those who leave Allah Ta'ala, then there is no hope for them, because then, the devil plays literally with them. And they're even in the afterlife, their companion would be fire. And they will live there forever. There's nothing to bring them out. If you've left Allah, then how will you come out of that fire? There is no way to get out of fire. There is no way to do that, right? Um, a plant is dying, then the only way is to put it in the light. But if you keep denying it light, it's already dying. You keep denying it light, then it's not going to revive. It's not going to do that. And if it dies completely, and if it's lost, then there is no way out of it. Right. So may Allah Ta'ala make us of those people who who take Him as our wali, and who understand that He is there for us. He was there for us. He is there for us, and He will always be there for us, despite the shortcomings that we have, despite the distractions of this world, despite the things that we try to do so many things, but we are not able to do so many things. Despite that, if we try to do a little bit good, then our pride swears up. If you're not able to do a little bit of good, that hopelessness takes over us. If we like something good happens and we get lost in the good, if something bad happens, then we get lost in that bad. May Allah Ta'ala make us of those people who are able to get beyond that, and who hold on to Him firmly in all situations of our life, whether it is no matter what kind of a test it is. And may Allah Ta'ala help us understand that who is our wali. And coming right to ayat after Ayat al-Kursi, it is like what kind of a wali we have. The kind of wali we have is who's ever living and ever, like always living, and who is always there for us. So may Allah Ta'ala help us appreciate it, and may Allah Ta'ala help us take advantage of the knowledge that He gives us, and may Allah Ta'ala make us of those people who are wise. And just as Allah Ta'ala united us as sisters in Islam in this world, may Allah Ta'ala reunite us as sisters in Islam in Akhirah. First of all, under the shade of His throne on the Day of Judgment, when there'll be no shade except His, and then once again in Jannatul Firdaus. سبحانك اللهم أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك 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 ونتوب إليك.